Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. Happy Monday, all you minties. Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the X-Men 2099 Omnibus from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on April 30th or May 1st, depending on where you get your books. So what we're looking at here is the standard edition cover. This is the one that's drawn by Ron Lim, but also inked by Adam Kubert, who inked the first couple of issues. And I love the blue trim. That's why I decided to get this one instead of the beautiful Greg Hildebrandt direct market cover. Now, the direct market cover also comes with a different spine, and the spine is actually drawn by Ron Lim, whereas the spine of the standard edition is drawn by Chris Sprouse. But everything else underneath the dust jacket is the same. So let's shift the focus back to this. So here we have the cover to X-Men 2099 #1, where you get to meet the main characters. Now, I remember when this series was coming out, and I was trying to figure out, okay, if this is X-Men in the future, in the year 2099, over 100 years from now, keep in mind, this was in the 90s, when this originally came out. Obviously, this guy is related to Colossus. Obviously, this guy's probably related to Havoc and Cyclops. Maybe this girl's got Psylocke, like, lineage in her. This guy's obviously Quicksilver. Boy, was I completely off, but we're going to find out exactly who these characters are here in a second. The Marvel Omnibus, X-Men 2099 logo, and then again, this piece here featuring the new team, because the team is changing always, constantly throughout this book. And then the back of the book, keeping the covers here of all the issues collected in there, the ISBN, and Bloodwing there, and retails for $125. Now, underneath the dust jacket, let's actually look at the flaps here. X-Men 2099, the X-Men, not just a job, a heritage. And the creators, John Francis Moore, Ron Lim, and Jander Sema. I think that's the first time I've seen Jander Sema on a flap here. And here we go. You have this piece by Ron Lim and Adam Kubert. The X-Men 2099 logo, but again has like a blue tone to it. As a matter of fact, this is a connecting cover, but it's not completely throughout the entire board, because the spine has the logo and the Marvel Omnibus logo. I wonder why they do that sometimes, and why sometimes the art on board is spread across the entire book. But we're going to crack this book open. I'm going to talk about the setting, the characters, and of course the premise of this particular story. And if it does take place in the chronological order of X-Men. And of course talk about the build and what exactly is collected in here. So let's crack it open. Okay, let's go ahead and crack this book open. You have some black end sheets, your title page right here, X-Men 2099, again, Bloodwing showing up, and your cast of characters up there with the writers, the pencilers, the inkers, the colorists, letters, assistant editors, and editors at the time this book came out, these particular single issues. The main writer through here, though, is John Francis Moore, who went on to do X-Force, and he's been writing comics for a while. You have Ron Lim being primarily on here for well over 20-plus issues, and Rick Leonardi, of course, doing the Spider-Man 2099 stuff, but Jander Sema coming in, and also Eric Battle, and Humberto Ramos, which we will talk about when I talk about what's collected in here. Your inkers, Adam Kubert, like I said, kicking it off, but Jimmy Palmiotti, Al Williamson, Keith Williams, Scott Koblish, Greg Hildebrandt, Tim Hildebrandt, and Cam Smith, Greg Adams, just to name a few. Colorists like Tom Smith and Steve Buccellato and Gina Going. And your letterers over here, Ken Lopez and other letterers and your editors at the time. And here is your table of contents telling you exactly where you're going to find the issue, what it was called, and when it originally came out. October of 1993 is what kicked it off. So this was another series that was set in the 2099 universe. We had Spidey 2099 and Ravage 2099, Doom 2099, and Punisher 2099. Then hell yes, let's get some X-Men. So we kick it off with issue number 1. So collected in here in its entirety is X-Men 2099 1 through 35, because the series ended there with the 35th issue, and X-Nation 1 through 6. I love the fact that that has been added. When I announced the book, I said it was going to be in there, but then people saw that in the solicits it wasn't, so I double checked with Marvel, and they were like, yes, we are adding it in there. So it is in here. And I'll talk about the placement of that here in a bit. Spider-Man 2099 number 16, Ravage 2099 number 15, Doom 2099 number 14, Punisher 2099 number 13, the X-Men 2099 special number 1, and X-Men 2099 Oasis one-shot. 1,240 pages, $125. So what is this book about? What is going on through here? Well, this all is set in the year 2099, and mutants have become, again, a minority of society, if you will. Something happened years before this book got started where a bunch of mutants got killed off, and you can find out exactly how by reading the book. And when I said that I would talk about where this is in the reading order of X-Men, it's really a non-canonical story. Yes, the characters are set in the 2099 universe, but as we came to find out with Spidey 2099, that is its own universe. So outside of the 616 universe. Doesn't mean that the 616 universe is going to lead here. I think at one time that was the idea, but we have strayed away from that idea. So now it's its own universe with its own number. So in this particular story that is all set in the same universe as Spidey 2099, like I mentioned, Doom and Punisher and Ravage, we meet this character here. This is Timothy Fitzgerald, and he got invited to what seems to be like a big rave, a big party. And who invited him is this young lady named Cerebra. And this is all taking place in the city of Nuevo Sol. And Nuevo Sol, remember, like Nueva York, it's very futuristic. It's out in the desert. As a matter of fact, you'll see Vegas here in a little bit. But he got invited there, and he has no purpose in life. The invitation is nothing but a big X, and he's greeted by this guy at the door. It's kind of like the club bouncer, junk pile. But once he goes in here, he finds out that there's other people like him. Serpentina, for example, just call her Tina, greets him and says, "Hey, you're a mutant." And he's like, whoa, hey, slow down. I'm not a mutant. What are you talking about? Then you get to meet other characters like Metalhead through here. Cerebra is the one that invited him, and you see that she's hanging out with Junk Pile, and they're waiting on their leader. This is Xi'an, who used to go by the Desert Ghost. Now, this is when things get really interesting, because Xi'an is talking to this guy right here. And this is the leader of the Singe Corporation. And Noah Singe has a son and a daughter that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But the Singe Corporation is controlling most of Vegas. And what they're doing is profiting through illegal means. One of those means is by putting people in like a gladiator pit, and they're kidnapping not just mutants, but other people with powers. And Sean's calling him out, and he's like, "Hey man, you need to stop this." And we see that Xi'an has this arm that looks like it's rotting away, and once he touches a wall, the wall's destroyed. But like this guy right here, he's kidnapped, and this is where you get to meet Desdemonica and her brother Lytton. But we get to meet more of the X-Men through here. So we meet Mean Streak and Crystalline. And Crystalline has powers of crystals, where she can put people in there, or she can shield herself. And Mean Streak is like the speedster. So they free this guy that turns out to be none other than Bloodwing. And Bloodwing's like, "Oh, you nothing. Deuces." And he leaves. Now, this is when Lytton and Desdemonica end up finding their father dead. So Xi'an is calling him out earlier, saying, hey, I know what you're doing, and what you're doing is illegal. So immediately they blame Xi'an. And Xi'an, all he's doing is just trying to recruit X-Men because he's had these visions since he came back from Ho Chi Minh City. He's had these visions that mutants were going to rule again and populate the planet again. And he starts quoting Xavier, he starts talking about Magnus, and then he starts talking about people that we haven't met yet, because this is again in 100 years in the future when it was written in 1993. So Del Ruiz and Zhao, and you can find out who shows up later on. Now, somebody has him targeted, and of course, we seem to think that it's the daughter and son of Noah Singe. So they try to assassinate him. However, Timothy comes in here and stops them. So this is his power, and he becomes known as Skullfire, which actually is a pretty rockin' name for the 90s. So Xi'an reveals to him, he's like, Timothy, I knew you'd join my X-Men, and that's where the first issue ends. So we get to meet these characters, and we get to know a little bit more about their powers and what they can do. Like Tina can stretch, Metalhead can touch any type of metal and pretty much become that metal. His whole body becomes that metal. Mean Streak is your super speedster, and he has enhanced metabolism, of course. And you have Xi'an, who has, like I said, the hand that's all gooey, almost like a zombie-like, that can destroy things. And there's Cerebra, and of course probably named after Cerebro, but what she can do is read and manipulate the nervous systems of other people, which you'll see here in a little bit. Crystalline, we talked a little bit about her power. Junk Pile's this heavy metal dude, not to be confused with Metalhead. And those are your X-Men at first. Bloodwing shows up to pay his oath. He's like, hey, wait, no, you did save me, so I'm going to save you. Now, as it turns out, did I call her Desdemonica? Her name is Desdemona. Sorry about that. It was her brother that framed Xi'an and pretended like it was Xi'an that killed their father so he could take over the Singe Corporation. So she finds out and pretty much lets the X-Men go. And Xi'an is in a comatose stage and like almost becomes like a cocoon when, you know, somebody tries to kill him. And you can find out how he gets out of it. They send in the Rat Pack to try to stop them. And that leads into a big fight again against the X-Men. Even in issue 4, you're going to start seeing a change up in the team. This is La Lunatica, who is working for the Theater of Pain. And this is when Mean Streak ends up leaving the book because he wants to go in his check on his friend, what was his name, Jordan. And Jordan has some twists and turns to that particular character. So he ends up leaving the team. And that leads into the big crossover, the big Fall of the Hammer crossover. Because Jordan is the newly reincarnated Loki. And during the Fall of the Hammer crossover, which I know I talked about when I did my Spider-Man 2099 Volume 1 overview, we're going to see other parts of the 2099 universe and see where X-Men fits in. I mean, we're talking about the 5th issue, and they're already a big part of this crossover. With all these titles. And one of the things that I didn't notice at first, but I noticed more this time, is that this is written by Pat Mills from the 2000 AD world. This was originally a concept by Stan Lee. But you're going to see how these characters intertwine with this particular world and how much bigger this 2099 world is when you introduce Spidey and, of course, Punisher. But the big key player here is Doom, and it's always going to be Doom. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to talk about each and every one of these stories, I promise. But as a matter of fact, the last part of this book plays heavy into what Doom is doing in the 2099 universe. And I found that to be really interesting because with that, we got X-Nation out of it. So the rest of the book is about, you know, meeting new characters, like the Freak Show here and Breakdown. There's even an X-Men type of team. Yeah, this issue right here. Look, it even has that red border. Now, of course, the original red border from issue number 1 had the chromium finish to it. I think I don't think it did. But yes, this is where you get to meet like the 2099 version of the X-Men, and who are they exactly? Because you've got Psycho K, you've got One-Eyed Jack, you've got, what is his name, Wingspan, I think, and Frostbite, and then the Beast character. It's something ridiculous. Not that Beast isn't. Is it Monster? Crystalline's here with yeah, this Monster with 10 eagles and trying to find herself, her place in this world. Xi'an has this deep dark side, and when he awakens out of that cocoon, he's now has the ability to have a healing hand and a destruction hand. And we're only like 9 issues in, so let's keep going here a little bit. The lineup of the book changes. This is the writer right here who has taken mutants to the other side, if you will. And what does that mean? Metalhead goes through changes, but the lineup of the stories through here change dramatically from time to time. Like the characters, it's never like the X-Men 2099 that we see in issue number 1, because we have new characters, we have old characters leaving. And even though they're leaving, I do appreciate the fact we're not spinning off into like a mini series. But what we're doing is you're focusing on each and every one of these characters throughout the book. So it's not like, hey, too bad Mean Streak left and went on his own adventure. We'll never see him again. So speaking of Mean Streak, we're also introduced to this character here, Halloween Jack. And Halloween Jack, if you've been reading the X-Force titles and Epic collections, may be familiar to you. Remember when I said that John Francis Moore went on to write X-Force? Yeah, he brought this character along with him. But how can a character from the 2099 universe exist in the 61690s universe? I always thought that character looked like Giant Robo. And there's a Tim Cell piece right here. So Ron Lim doesn't do all the covers, but seriously, Ron Lim does a lot of the artwork. And one of my favorite inkers, Harry Candelario, does the inks for a lot of the stuff through here. Something else... Uncanny Omar talked pretty one day. Something else you're going to notice is the different colors they're using. So right now, during this time, this is a very interesting time for Marvel historically, because what they did was buy Malibu Studios. And Malibu Studios was known for printing things like Prime, or it's the Ultraverse pretty much. Why they bought the studios was so they could get these colors. So you're going to start seeing different computer generated colors through here, especially about the middle of the book. And they're going to start giving credit to Malibu Studios, not just one or two people, but actually Malibu Studios. So the Theater of Pain plays a big part through here, including their leader Brimston Love there. And characters will turn good, some of them will turn bad. This is the special. This is the very first special right here. And Steve Pugh does the artwork in here. The covers by the Hildebrands. The Oasis covers what they use for the direct market cover. And this is an anthology of stories written by someone. No, I'm sorry. The special is what they use for the cover of the direct market. The Oasis is when Greg and Tim Hildebrandt painted the entire thing, and all of it written by John Francis Moore. Now, the anthologies aren't written. This is like a Dr. Seuss type of story here. Those aren't written by John Francis Moore. They're other writers that took on those particular stories. But it's really cool to see the Hildebrands work on this book. I've read the interview because I had never read that interview with the Hildebrands, and they talk about how this was their most difficult thing they ever had to paint because they're not used to sequential art, which I've always said, you know, it's different than doing a cover. It's different than doing a painting. It could be a really difficult task if you're not used to it. And I thought that was a really cool interview. And these are the type of colors you're going to be seeing through here. So Malibu Computer Color is what you're going to be seeing through there with Tom Smith as the main colorist of the book. And lots of characters showing up. And then we get newer characters too. But you can find out who ends up joining the X-Men. And I keep calling them that because that's what they are. I'm not going to keep calling them X-Men 2099. They go through some changes. And speaking of changes, I said eventually we get to the point of the book where Doom is taking a huge part in the 2099 universe. Not just in the Doom title, but in every single title. Yeah, I may have talked about it in the 2099 review of Spidey, but I'll leave that alone in case there are any kind of spoilers. Now, it is insane that most of this was drawn by Ron Lim. I mean, he was a fast artist, so it's crazy that he had a non-stop run with hardly any fillers. But he does end up leaving after, I think he made it through the 30th issue. And Jander Sema becomes the ongoing artist. Now, the book does change in tone with that thing that's going on with Doom. The X-Men take a big part in becoming like almost like Shield. But the big thing about this is that we're introduced to these characters known as the X Nation. Because Doom believes that there's a messiah that is coming for mutants. And he wants Cerebra to find him. And in order to find him, she goes through all kinds of means, like finding the Sisters of the Howling Commandments, which is such an awesome name. And that leads into finding the X Nation kids. So let's look. And that's all I will say about X-Men 2099, because that leads into X-Nation. Now, really, it's like 31, and then X-Nation number 1, 32, then X-Nation number 2. But what they did here is put X-Nation 2099 all the way in the back, so you're not breaking up the stories. Even though one of them kind of crosses over into issue number 2 of X-Nation, but it's not a big enough crossover. It's just like one or two characters together, and that's it. So in this book, this is Humberto Ramos, and it is also Tom Peyer writing these particular stories. Tom had worked on DC's Legion of Superheroes and books like that, so he was used to writing teens, and Humberto Ramos I thought was perfect. This is him coming to Marvel Comics over from the Distinguished competition. He had been working on Impulse. But here you get to meet characters like Willow and Uproar and December and Metalsmith, Nostromo. Oh, who are the other ones? Wolf, Clarion, and I think that's it. Twilight. Twilight is the other character. But these are like your new kids. These are the kids that are going to lead the future as far as mutant kind. You're already going to see some of the X-Men 2099 play a part in this. And then this is about the only title. There's a couple little Easter eggs in X-Men 2099, but this is the title that actually ties heavily into the 616 universe, into the X-Men that we knew in 1993. Or I guess this one came out in 94. Now, in the back, we have a pinup here from Ron Lim and Adam Kubert, which is the same piece that they're using for the art on board. And we have character sketches and character design. So there's Mean Streak and Crystalline and Metalhead and Serpentina and Xi'an, Bloodhawk, Cerebra, and Skullfire. This is from the I remember this magazine because I think I still have it. This is the X-Men Collector's Preview, talking about not just Age of Apocalypse, but X-Men 2099. An interview with John Francis Moore. This is the Hildebrandt interview, talking about the stories there. And the toys, because, man, X-Men 2099 was actually really popular. So much so that they got their own line of toys, like Lunatica there, Metalhead, and Bloodwing, and Mean Streak. I'm not sure how many they made. It would have been cool to see a Skullfire. I actually really like the designs of some of these characters. Oh, and here's a character design by a young Humberto Ramos at that, of the X-Men X-Nation 2099. Now, their stories didn't end, by the way. Like, you have 15-year-old Humberto Ramos sketches back here. It's really cool. Their story doesn't end, and neither does X-Men. It does continue into the world of 2099. And that's not available in omnibus format. I'm hoping one day we'll see like a World of 2099 omnibus with all the unlimited issues, or maybe some of the comics that, like Fantastic Four, that didn't have a long streak, but they need to put them somewhere. These are pinups right here. And these, let's see, 2099 was also published as a deluxe gold edition. What? Which contained these 8 printed pinups by Bob Larkin. I didn't know there was a gold edition. That's cool. Skullfire's badass. I really like, maybe it's just in the 90s. Oh yeah, I guess there is a gold edition. These are the connected covers here for The Fall of the Hammer, the trade paperback, which I never got. I never did get the trade paperback. I think I only collected the first 8 issues and the poster there by Tim and Greg Hildebrandt. Wish that was a double-page spread. And then the full cover art there. Now, let's talk about the binding and build. 1,240 pages. Sewn binding. This one is printed at the iMac printer. But again, they have changed their paper stock to be a thicker paper stock, so you don't really see a lot of bleed through coming from the opposite side. Like, even if it's light colors or white pages, there is some, but honestly, it's just it's me looking for it. I've seen worse in Donley printers. I've seen worse in some of the most recent DC Omnis. I mean, they're not, I'm not saying it's as thick as they used to be, but it's thicker than what it has been for the last couple of years. And they've changed it up here in the last couple of months. Now, one of the things I noticed is there is some of those muddled colors, but honestly, it doesn't happen a lot. I noticed it in the Spidey 2099 Omnibus, and it's about the same number of issues. It's not that many issues. Oh, by the way, this is the way that it lays over. So this is a perfect example of a spread page. Totally meant to turn to this page. So you do have minimal gutter loss, and that's due to the eye. Wish it was bigger. You know, we've got the paper stock a little thicker. Let's get that eye, make it a little bigger. But the scans are actually pretty good for the most part. Yeah, this is what I noticed. Like little things like this, because of the colors they were using. And I only noticed it in a couple of issues. For the most part, it seems like they've cleaned up the artwork, because this stuff has never been printed. That's what I was really surprised about. Maybe that's why we had it delayed. And I'm not saying each and every panel is perfect, but it honestly looks better than the scans that they've used for Wolverine Omnibus Volume 4, where you saw like the muddled colors because they were using those computer-generated colors for the time. But in this collection, they've actually cleaned up a ton of it. There's a couple of issues that I noticed that I just showed you an example. It's usually like on the grays. But if you look at that, that looks completely fine. So it's here and there. But I did want to be as thorough as possible. That's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you have fond memories of the 2099 universe, what your favorite title was, or if you remember the X-Men 2099 title, and what you thought about it. What other 2099 title you would love to see collected in omnibus format. And for myself, oh my gosh, I'd love to see that Doom 2099 and honestly Ravage, just because of those early memories. But anyway, if you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.